Greetings to you, Mark Automaton.
Hello, hello.
I rather like your splendid bookcase.
If only it were mine.
You can call it yours. I mean, it's for now virtually.
Yeah, mine's not too different to that, but it's maybe not quite as well stocked.
Well, my guess is that particular stock photography bookcase has no actual books on it. Have you ever? I'm recording, by the way. I'm legally obliged to tell you that.
Yes.
And to be more specific, I'm recording this meeting now. Have you ever been in like a show house or something and actually picked up one of those books to discover that it's just a facade?
No, I haven't, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I have. It was in 2004 here in Beijing at the show office of the new school we were joining, and it was a lovely area because they were building apartments as well, so they had a show apartment and a little office for the school, and this fantastic bookcase with a ladder just like that, were very Hogwartsy, and I just walked over, and the quality of the printing was amazing, and I touched one, but there wasn't one, it was just one big long picture.
Yeah.
And it was then I suddenly realized that all of life is a lie.
That reminds me a little bit of those rich Victorians who used to buy books by the yard for their bookshelves.
It was the same thing, was it?
Well, not quite, because these were real books, but they basically they'd these sort of, especially sort of nouveau riche sort of Victorians, like mill owners and so on and so forth. So they bought a big mansion. They've got a library there with huge shelves on it, but they've got no books. So they go to a bookseller and say, "Give me 5 yards of books," so that they could fit them into their shelves.
What kind of books do you want?
Yeah, exactly. It's just
what have you got?
5 yards worth of books.
That's a lovely fact. I did not know that. Here comes the Meldrum
then,
with a lot less hair. Did you follow his hair exploits? And his beard
exploits? No, I'm obviously missing out on something there. Oh, look at that! Yes, very impressive.
Well, I was just saying to Mark, hello there, Lennox Meldrum. I was saying, asking him if he's been following your hair exploits, and particularly the beard exploits.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, you were growing a beard, weren't you?
The beard was sort of a distraction from how bad the hair is when you first start growing it. So once the hair got to a point that it could stand on its own, then the beard disappeared. We're mid-November at the moment, and so got the stay 150 meters away young children moustache at the moment.
Just want to double check when you said so that the hair could stand on its own.
Did
you literally mean, or did you metaphorically mean in a fashion sense?
It depends on the day. I had a bit of a lie down just before, and it sort of got a little bit funny. So.
Legal requirements are that I tell you we are now recording, and have been recording. I am recording this meeting. So welcome to this special edition of Did You Get the Hidden Agenda?
Special edition, is it?
Well, I think it is, because you and I have no idea about. Well, I think we do know what the broad agenda is, but we have no idea what Lennox. We've deliberately invited Lennox here and not to tell us what he's going to talk about, which is potentially, it's always. I think this intermittent podcast is always career threatening, but I think giving Lennox free range is taking it to a whole new level.
Well, I will be focusing it around the new album, Kill Switch Fails, without a doubt. But taking it in a particular direction that eventually I think we'll get to that point. And I think just for starters to talk about the album, each time you guys record, you use a different methodology in terms of creating the music, creating the lyrics, and how they shared and all that. Do you want to talk through how this album got constructed, where it started from? Particularly, and then how you collaborated in putting it together.
I think I'd like Mark to take that one first.
Oh gosh, blimey, what a responsibility. Well, yeah, this is. I suppose it's a little bit like the way that we approached Trust Issues, which was we didn't really collaborate physically on anything. Any of the tracks. We produced our own tracks, although obviously we would sort of Richard would send me a copy of something that he'd done and say, what do you think to this? And I would say the drums are too loud, or I don't like the bass, or something like that. Or I would send something to him and say, what do you think to this? And he would say, it's awful, do it again. And that kind of thing.
That's
so
a quote, isn't it?
Yeah, almost, yes. But yeah, so there was collaboration in that way. So it's still a collaborative project, but again, it was I had my songs, Richard had his songs, but we decided this time, rather than, as we did on Trust Issues, have one block of my songs and then a block of Richard's songs, or vice versa, we would interleave them in the similar way that we did on the name of the album which we first did, Outrage for Breakfast, which I almost forgot there. It's my age, what can I say? So it's yeah, as you say, it's yet another way of presenting our collaborative working. I'll let Richard talk about his specific tracks if he wants to in a moment, but I just wanted to say about the stuff that I've done on there. There was a certain amount of experimentation involved, and you might not realize that to listen to it, but
oh yeah.
But I've always felt I've always been interested in experimenting in various ways with music, but I don't believe that experimental music has to be unlistenable. And so there were some various experiments which we can talk about. Can
I just add my 2 pence, because
Please do.
I can't really add much to what Mark said about how it came into being and how we constructed it, but there was something a little bit not really different but more exaggerated this time. I was a lot further behind in the writing I mean, Mark is much more prolific than I am in terms of writing, but because we've for the last 2-3 years, is it 3 years? I suppose it is. On November the 5th, we've decided to release an album every November the 5th, and this is the 3rd one. And I knew that he'd be much further ahead in curating a set of songs for this album, but I think it's with coming back to China and starting a job, various other reasons. I was way behind, but I did know that during the October break here, I would be able to catch up. But the reason this is in this part of the conversation is I'd heard quite a bit of, if not all, of what Mark had done, and it didn't knowingly influenced me, but it must have done subconsciously, because I'd heard, I wasn't used to everything. I hadn't listened to it 5-6 times, but I'd heard pretty much everything. And so, yeah, that was different about this process. And I think that the first album and this one are probably, if I think about it that way, documentary of the time in which they were made. And there was a lot more back and forth with Outrage for Breakfast, wasn't there, Mark?
Yeah.
A lot more. But this one was much more, for me personally, was much more time constrained. And there was a lot more. I didn't feel stressed when I was writing the songs, but this is a much more stressful year than the first album or the second album for me. So I wonder if that came into it somehow. I think it probably did, if I read the lyrics and listen to the way I was playing guitar.
if with a history of making the albums, third album together in the last few years, and a longer personal history behind that, when you do get that other person's tracks, is there any limitation you put on yourself in terms of your feedback to the other person? Is it like, that's just Richard and I won't say it again, I've told him 50 times and he still does that? Or is there, do you feel that length of time that you've known each other enhances your ability to be able to really, say what you think and say and talk about the direction of a particular song or the direction of the album?
Well, once again, I can't speak for Richard, but for the way that I do it, certainly I don't hold back. If there's something that I don't like, then I'll tell him. Like, for example, the guitar sound on which one of the tracks was it? Was it Losing Nightingales? I think it was. Or
no, it was. It wasn't Rain Jacket. It was the other slow one. I am.
Yeah, the other slow one. It's almost as if we don't know our own work, isn't it? But no, I mean, whatever the song was, he had a guitar sound on there. Well, it wasn't so much the guitar sound; it was one of the effects that he put it through, which kind of distressed it, and it distressed it in a way that I didn't like. And I told him that. I said, it sounds horrible. But he went, well, I like it. So, and at the end of the day, that is his decision. And the other person has basically just got to suck it up. But that doesn't stop us expressing our opinions.
Mm-hmm.
It was called From That Moment. And
From That Moment, yes.
Interestingly, I'd also sent that track to my lad Finn, and he said that he absolutely loved the guitar. So there was no way you were ever going to win that.
No.
I mean, I liked it and I'd chosen it, but very often, I thought you were going to talk about Rain Jacket, because I was in a taxi.
Oh no, well, yes, that's a different story, isn't it?
In a taxi coming back from work into town, and I had a muse-filled moment. Beijing was my muse, and for some reason I was thinking about Nick Rhodes' "Don't Look Now." I don't know why I was thinking about that movie. In that movie, it's a black and white movie, but is it about the murder of a child?
It's not black and white,
isn't it?
No.
Oh well, I've just reinvented Nick Rhodes' movie. But there's a red Rain Jacket, isn't there? And it's really, anyway. I was thinking about that, and I wrote these lyrics, and I knew that they were cloying, and I knew that they were obvious, and I knew that they were kitsch, but I thought I could get away with it. But so I made the mistake of sending them to Mark, and he said, "Wow, they're shit. Apart from this line."
Well, I didn't say that exactly, did I? What I actually said was I genuinely thought that he'd used ChatGPT to write them because they were that bad. Not bad. No, but you know the way. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experimented with getting ChatGPT to write a poem or a song, but the results are, they would make the person who writes the verses for Hallmark cards blush because they are so trite. And I said it has this ChatGPT clunkiness about it, which I really didn't like. But having said that, I'd only read them as they were written down. When I actually heard him perform the song with the music and the way in which he vocalized it, I thought, actually, yeah, I'm getting to like this. And now it's actually one of my favorite tracks, bizarrely.
I doubled down on my clunkiness.
So when you when one of you decides on a track, do you do for this album? Do you do everything yourself on that album, or are there parts that you go, I really need Mark's input on this part in terms of the guitar part, or this would be a perfect one for Richard to sing? Is there, or are they totally self-produced with just feedback from the other person?
Yeah, this one is like that.
Yeah,
this one is very much like that. And I suppose Trust Issues was even more like that because it was two separate sides.
Yeah.
But I think I mean it's not really part of a plan, because during the making of this one, not so much Trust Issues, because I definitely had an idea about that piece of all 6 songs was supposed to be listened to consecutively, so that in my head that needed to be on one side. But during the making of this album, I definitely missed parts of the process of the first of Outrage, where I forget, there were a couple. Well, Rocket Ships from the first album. I thought I'd finished that song. I thought it was like 2 minutes 20 seconds long, and then Mark comes back with, no, this is much more of a almost a musical comedy, drama, tragedy, semi Gilbert and Sullivan thing. I don't know. It was going all over the place. But so I do miss that, but I think we'll probably come back round to that. But this album was very, very much, I think it's probably, I don't know why, but I want to say, but it's clinical.
Clinical.
It's a bit more clinical.
Yeah, well, the project which we have just embarked on, well, I don't think Richard has really done anything with this other than create a folder on the shared drive for us to put our files in, but I'm sure he will be involved in it very shortly. But what we're doing is we're collaborating with a poet called Will Weigar, who is a guy who we knew from way back when. He's actually recently just had a book of his poems published by the London Magazine. And bizarrely, one night I had a dream that sounds like the beginning of a speech, doesn't it? I had a dream that we were collaborating with him on producing some tracks where he would read his poems, we would produce the musical backing, and then we'd create a video to go with it. And I woke up and remembered the dream, and I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. I'll get in touch with him and Richard and see what they think. And they got in touch with both of them, and they both thought it was a good idea. So I've actually made a start on that, and I've actually created. I've taken his first poem, and I've actually created 2 different mixes of that already. But nobody's heard them yet. I haven't sent them because I'm not quite sure that they're finished yet. But he's on the shared drive. He's put about half a dozen of his readings of some of his poems on there. And so what I thought was we could have a go at doing those. He's also put some notes on as to what he thought the backing might want to sound like, just some vague ideas. So I thought we can have a similar sort of approach to that. We can either take one, a whole poem each and do something with it, or we could collaborate on the backing of a particular track. So I would do a bit and then Richard would do a bit maybe as well. I don't know exactly how it's going to work yet, but it's going okay at the moment.
I've just looked in that folder actually since I only made it like a week ago, was it?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's put five up there, hasn't he? And in my defense, I did say to Mark, I said, how do you see this rolling out? And that was only a couple of days ago. And he said, well, Will do his thing and record it. Then I'll make some music and you can add something if you like. It was a bit, honestly, I think later on when somebody makes the movie of this, I think this is historians will identify as this as the point that the breakup started, I think.
19 minutes in and going well. Okay, so so that sort of segues well into the next question, where you've got not just one Edna St. Vincent Millay track, but two within there. And I quite like, with the first one, Dirge Without Music with music, and then to include a second track as well. How did the idea of putting her words into your music come about?
Well, I've in the past I've done quite a few tracks where I've put musical backing to poems. I'm trying to think of some of the other poems that I've done. Sylvia Plath was one, W.H. Auden, Edith Sitwell, and a few others. So it basically, I read a poem and I think, oh, I can hear music behind that kind of thing, and it was the same with old Edna. I think she's quite an interesting character because in her time, she was probably the most famous poet in America. But now, if you ask the average person in the street to name a famous American poet, probably a lot of them wouldn't be able to name any, but they would probably say something like Walt Whitman or Robert Frost or Longfellow or something like that. But they wouldn't mention Edna because she's kind of faded away into history. And I'm always fascinated by characters who are like that, who sort of burn very brightly, and then nowadays we never hear of them. So I started reading a few of her poems, and I really, really liked her poems. And the two that I set to music were two that I particularly liked, and that was just the reason why, I think.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever think of throwing some Richard's way and saying, what do you think about putting some music to this one?
I didn't. No, maybe I should have done.
I've looked. I'm glad I said this a couple of minutes ago, because this is going to prove a really pivotal moment. I played a gig with Seething Wells once. Does that count? He's known as Simon Wells now.
We're starting to edge on our hidden agenda here. So let's go back to you when you first started playing publicly. A couple of years ago for each of you. Many artists, when they first start doing covers of songs that they can play or covers of songs that influence them. What were some of the artists that were included in your early set list that weren't your music?
Are you talking about Random K Automata?
I'm talking about as early as you first got up on stage.
Oh, right, okay, because that your questions made no sense at all.
No,
I
no,
don't actually recall Product of Reason doing any cover versions. Did you ever do any cover versions?
Products of Reason didn't, but they weren't my first band. So,
Oh, right.
First publicly getting up on stage. Well, there was a weird band I was in. It must have been 1978, 9. I'm going to say 78, 9. And we called ourselves the Test Tube Babies until we realized there was a band called Peter and the Test Tube Babies. But we didn't really last very long. Neil Scott was in that band. He drummed, and Andy Shorten was bass player. And what we did was we took Public Image lyrics and we set them to Status Quo tunes. That's how I remember it. Now, we all know that memory is a fickle lover, and mine in particular, bit of a slapper, really. My memory, it's been all over the shop. So I could be wrong with that, but yeah. So I was in a covers band with Martin from Products of Reason. I filled in with him and the Webb brothers, famous Webb brothers, and we did Stones and Beatles stuff. But I never really early. I mean, this was punk and new wave era. So what were you doing covers for? I don't think I ever went on stage with a band that was supposed to be a band doing originals, putting covers even in the encore, because we never got encores. So the Instant Automatons ever do covers?
Absolutely. That was one of the core components of our work. Was we always
House of Rising Sun.
That's just one of them. Yeah. I mean, even from right at the beginning, when we couldn't really play any instruments, we still wanted to do cover. But we obviously, in the early days, the cover versions that we did were very, very sort of twisted versions, partly because we couldn't play, and also because we just wanted to do something different with the tracks. So, for example, one of the very earliest things that we did was a version of the Beatles' Revolution, but we changed the lyrics. And then we did, what else did we do?
Well, I thought you were going to tell us what you changed the lyrics to. Did you change the nature of the song?
Yes.
Was it about being compliant?
No, it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was rude, it was kind of taking the piss out of what the Beatles were trying to say.
It inspired Charles Manson to become a gardener.
But we also did, what else did we do in the early days? Well, I've always been very influenced by Leonard Cohen, so we wanted to do a Leonard Cohen song, and we did Teachers, which I believe the Sisters of Mercy did a version of that as well. Or if they didn't do it, they were certainly very heavily influenced by it, because there's a line in there: some girls wander by mistake into the mess that scalpels make. And I think the compilation album, the Sisters of Mercy Greatest Hits, was called Some Girls Wander by Mistake. So, you know, they're definitely aware of that if they hadn't actually done it themselves. We also, I remember one of our very, very earliest live performances, we did a version of Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat by Bob Dylan. Because again, Bob Dylan was quite a big influence on me, certainly. I don't know about Protag, but me definitely. So we did a version of that, although I suspect it was very much not like a Bob Dylan song by the time we'd finished mangling it. But we did a few other things as well. As Richard said there, House of the Rising Sun. We did a version of House of the Rising Sun, and we did it with a live drummer, because normally we used a drum machine, but this time we had a live drummer. And I remember we performed it more or less live in the studio. It was in Martin's chicken shed studio that we recorded it. And I remember the only instruction that I gave them before we did it was make it sound like Joy Division. So it was like our pathetic attempt to make a song that sounded like Joy Division doing a version of House of the Rising Sun.
But it certainly sounded ironic.
So what are some of your favorite cover versions that you've heard over the years that have really stuck with you as the preferred version of a particular song over perhaps the original that you knew, or just the cover version was the only one that you actually knew of?
That is a really good question. That one.
There's a song. It's not really does it count as a cover if it's done by the person who wrote it but changed it up quite a bit? There's a recording that Gary Newman made in around about 2017, 18 in a place called the Crypt in London. And he does, and it literally is I think it's in the crypt of, what's the big old church they've got there with the dome. Christopher Wren designed it. Christopher Wren designed it.
St. Paul's.
St. Paul's. I think there's a crypt at St. Paul's, and I think somebody's leased it out for various events. And there's a version of Our Friends Electric recorded down there that is just so much better than the original. It is stunning. Everything Nine Inch Nails did to Gary Newman is unforgivable. I'll just say that. Shouldn't be. Should have worked, but it just didn't for me. But anyway,
there is that there is that idea that of covering your own music. You know, Taylor Swift obviously is doing it for her songwriting credits reasons, and Def Leppard have done the same sort of thing. But Yusuf Islam, Cat Stevens, came out with his new version of Teeth of the Tillerman, where, you know, it's him re-recording. I suppose they could be considered cover versions as well. Suicidal Tendencies, you know, if the classic skate punk band, their first album was recorded under very rough circumstances, and so they ended up re-recording that about 10 years later with a different band. And so I suppose, you know, and it's funny that second Suicidals album, as influential as the first one is, the re-recording to me is I suppose they are all cover versions. They're different musicians apart from the lead singer. And so, yeah, to me, that is my favorite cover versions of those songs. So, yeah, there are versions of cover versions, I guess.
I've got two more for you. There's an Irish female singer who, I don't know if she won one of those competitions that they have on the TV sets these days, but she's called Janet Devlin, and she's done a version of Barbie Girl, and she's changed the lyrics up a little bit, and it's deeply moving. She's a whole album of cover versions that are, and it's what she's done with the lyrics. It's pretty chilling. And then there's Cowboy Junkies version of Sweet Jane.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yes. Big fan of Cowboy Junkies. I'm just trying to think of some of the ones that I like. I actually I discovered it the other day. Actually, I have a CD full of MP3s of cover versions of songs that I put together a long time ago, and I sort of left it in a cupboard or something, or I found it the other day and I was listening to it in the car, and there's like loads and loads on there. I'm trying to think of some. I mean, I suppose one that a lot of people didn't realize was a cover version, and I'm not sure that I've ever heard the original version. It was Torn by Natalie Imbruglia. I mean, that is her version is like the the canonical version now, isn't it? It's the classic version. Same with Cyndi Lauper and Girls Just Want to Have Fun, because that's a cover version. I didn't realize that at the time. And I don't think I've ever heard the original version, but
Magazine's version of Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, which is a Sly and the Family Stone record.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've not heard that.
What was the big Patti Smith hit? Because the Night. That's a
Because the Night. That's, well, I mean, she wrote that with Bruce Springsteen, didn't she?
Okay. I thought he wrote
the version as such.
Ignore that.
Although my favorite band in the world, 10,000 Maniacs, did do a cover version of that. So yeah, that's one. They also did a good version of More Than This by Roxy Music, which is worth checking out. The other two that I was thinking of were, there was a Scottish band. I don't think they're going on anymore. They were called Speedway, and they did a very sort of rocky, punky version of Christina Aguilera's Genie in a Bottle, which is absolutely brilliant. I would definitely recommend you check that out. Speedway, Genie in a Bottle, especially the video. And the other one that I wanted to mention, wait a minute, Richard. This is my time now. Was Lena Lovett's version of I Think We're Alone Now, which I think is really good. Okay, you may talk.
Thank you kindly, sir. If I had a forelock, I'd give it a good old tug in your general direction. Kiss covered Rock and Roll Radio, Ramones.
Okay.
It's on that album, One Big Family or something, and it's like super famous band all doing Ramones songs. And the common theme was that I think the closer you tried to get to the original, the better you were going to sound, because there's no point in trying to reinvent a Ramones song. Oh, and there was that Elastica Wire cover that they said wasn't a Wire song.
Right.
Oh, that was they just stolen the riff, hadn't they, for that one?
It was strange, wasn't it, that they picked?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at your songs over 3 albums, what songs would you want to be covered, and who would you want to cover those songs?
Ooh. These are good questions, aren't they?
They are really good. I wish this wasn't a hidden agenda, because this is going to take them some thinking about.
The hidden agenda, of course, is cover music. So that was the agenda going into this. Having seen your couple of songs using lyrics of other people, and sort of that's expanded out.
I'd
like all of Mark's songs to be covered by Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, that might be a bit difficult at the moment.
Yes. It'd be a multi-CD album of silence, wouldn't it?
Well, if I could interrupt while you're thinking and play this little bit, there is some. Here's Johnny Cash.
Is it Johnny Cash playing Hurt?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay. We're not hearing anything or seeing anything. Do I need to give you? I think I might need to give you.
I can play. I've got another way around it. Don't worry. Let me grab this for you. And yes, with the use of AI now, they are able to produce some amazing stuff.
Hello,
so
I'm not Johnny Cash. So it's gonna be forever, or it's gonna go down in flames. You can tell me
yes.
it's over. If the high was worth the pain. Got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane. 'Cause you know I love the players and you love the game. 'Cause we're young and we're reckless. We'll take this way too far. It'll leave you breathless or with a nasty scar. Got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane, but I've got a blank space, baby.
Miley Cyrus,
There you go.
Excellent.
So,
Yes.
So it's not out of the realm to have Leonard Cohen cover some of the songs. We talk about it now and have a bit of a chuckle, but in 3 years' time, who knows?
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose a lot of my stuff does have a very strong influence of Leonard Cohen. Some of the things that I write are, some of the lines are deliberately Cohen-esque. So I guess that would be somebody who might be able to do them. But to be honest, I've always thought that it would be a pleasure for anybody to have a go at one of my songs, no matter who they were or what they made of it. I think
it would be their pleasure, wouldn't it, Mark?
Well, it would be my pleasure as well, because it means that they think enough of it to do something with those lyrics or that music, you know.
Oh, I know what Lennox is going to suggest. He's going to suggest that I cover all your songs and you cover all mine.
I don't think that's going to work, because I mean, you could definitely cover my songs, but I don't think I could cover yours because I can't play guitar as good as you can.
That would be.
I've just thought of one actually. A song that didn't appear on this album or the album. It's not on any album. Called "These Are the Things I Took From You." I'd like the Divine Comedy to cover that.
Oh, interesting choice.
I just wrote that on a whim, that song. I'm really proud of it. I'm not really proud of the recording, but the lyrics, each time I read the lyrics, because it reads like it's about somebody in particular, but it really isn't. And that's really worrying, because if it's not about anybody in particular, that means that just generally I'm really bitter. It's not a good thing to discover about yourself. I tell you, especially at my age, I'm a bit, could go either way.
I think we've discussed this maybe on the last one or a previous time. But is your process, because both of you are very lyrically influenced writers, is your process to be lyrics first, followed by the music, or are there times that you've just got this great piece of music sitting around and you try and write lyrics from scratch, or ones that you've had before, and try and fit them in?
The idea of having a great piece of music lying around. I don't know where you came up with that, but that's genius. Hellfire. Yeah. Actually, so that track, the one I still can't remember the title of, Mark. No. From that moment, actually, I was going through, because I do produce stuff and then not use it, but that's usually because I think it's crap, or I had a little bit too much of the El Vino and it all went a bit wrong. That was one of those. But I could hear a tune in it. I could hear a rhythm in it, and I had the lyrics anyway. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. No, I think they're the rarities. I think they are the rarities when I have a bit of music lying around, or it's lyrics pretty much always. Earlier today, for some reason, the word, I was having a conversation with the kid's mum, and we were talking about really important things, whatever it is that you pass on. The really important things are time and love, right? They're the things that you need to give to your kids, time and love. And I wrote that down because I thought this is really, could be cloying, could be a bit Hallmark, but I'll write that down. And then I heard the word circumstance. So now I've got a song building called Circumstance, and it starts with the words, you and I, we are everything and nothing, you and I. And it's going to be about things going wrong, but knowing what the truth is.
Very good.
Lyrics always come first.
Yeah, I would agree. That was certainly my approach as well. Although, having said that, sometimes, because I've been buying a few of these virtual instruments to play around with, and I play around with them and create like a sound bed or something like that, and I really like it. So I think, right, this needs some lyrics. So I would then write some lyrics to go with it, but it's mainly write the lyrics first and then create a backing for it. It is my normal modus operandi.
I was watching an interview with Tim Minchin recently. Tim Minchin, the piano player, comedian, can't read music, can't write music, and so everything that
he's a comedian, you say?
You are, yeah. He's got some good stuff. So yeah, but he can't read or write music, so everything's just his talent. And he said he was on a flight. I think he was flying into Beijing actually, and he got this song in his head. Like, you know, songs will come to him, and normally he'll record it into his phone. His phone was flat. He didn't know how to write it down, so he said he sat there for about 3 hours just going round and around in his head so he could remember it until he got to his hotel room and could record it into his phone. So
wow,
yeah, inspiration hits at different points.
Yeah.
Was that part of his comedy or part of his music?
Well, it's like musical comedy, really, isn't it?
That was a bit that didn't work for me there. Sorry, I just got a bit too full of myself, not finding Tim Minchin amusing.
Tim's good.
Yeah,
I know everybody likes Tim Minchin, and I've got nothing against the fella. I don't want to start any internet squabble because I know he's a regular on the channel.
He definitely is. So looking at the new album then, and using the power of AI for what it is okay at, which is definitely not writing lyrics, but reading lyrics and having a look at the past, I decided to put in the lyrics to each of the songs that you have put onto this album, and say, what are the top 3 artists that influenced the writing of the song, the lyrics in the song, and the themes. And so I thought I'd go through a few of the songs and
I like this.
See what you think, and see whether you feel. I'm going to start off with My Rain Jacket. You know, it's lyrics on par there. But the 3 artists that it came up with were Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, and Tom Waits.
Yeah, that's not proving anything, though, is it? Let's be honest.
Each for a different reason. They said Dylan's the lyrical structure bears resemblance to Dylan's style, particularly in the abstract and introspective nature. Dylan often uses weather and physical items as metaphors for emotional states, much like the references to rains, clouds, and frayed nerves in the lyrics. Lyrics seem disjointed imagery leading to a larger cohesive narrative in a hallmark of Dylan's songwriting.
Wow.
That's not a bad critique, though, is it?
No, well, because I thought I'll do one. I'll see if this works out. I'm like, okay, that's the first thing that popped out. I thought, okay, interesting. Some of them, the Obsolete. Who's the Obsolete?
That's Richards.
Radiohead, David Bowie, and Peter Gabriel.
I think a lot of Richards' stuff demonstrates those kind of influences.
Yeah, so Radiohead, the thematic focus on technology, obsolescence, and existential reflection in the obsolete is reminiscent of Radiohead, particularly their work from albums like OK Computer and Kid A. These albums explore themes of alienation, technological advancement, and the dehumanizing aspects of modern life. The lyrical style, combining abstract and concrete imagery, is quite in line with Thom Yorke's songwriting.
I don't think that's as good a critique as the first one. I think that sounds to me like they've picked up on one particular line, that there's something in there about hardware, and I think they picked up on that, and picked up on that. So yeah, but I think
we as a collective, yes,
yeah. But I mean, as a language model, it's writing quite well. It understands the style of a basic critique, doesn't it? It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Bag Full of God.
That's one of mine.
Interesting, that it brought up Nick Cave as its first thing, and it said the direct reference to Nick Cave in the lyrics, coupled with the song's dark narrative style, suggests a strong influence from Cave's work.
Yeah.
Cave's known for storytelling, often weaving themes of religion, morality, and human condition into the songs, character-driven narrative, and the blend of the mundane and the mystical hallmarks of Cave songwriting. The other two artists that I like that it referenced here as well, and I think both of them stand out, Tom Waits and Leonard Cohen as well.
Yeah. Yes, it's not too much of a stretch of the imagination, but that song was a deliberate attempt to create some kind of amalgamation of a Nick Cave and Tom Waits song. So yeah, that's no surprise.
and I was trying to get it. I was like, listen to it. I wanted to play it and be like, yeah, it's Tom Waits. All right. Runaway Train.
That's mine as well. Yeah.
Interesting here. Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, and Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, right.
Which of those descriptions would you want to hear?
I guess it sounds like they kind of throw Bob Dylan in for a lot of stuff, really, don't they? And I suppose considering the length of his career and the sort of span of what he's done, it is probably relevant.
It's got train in the title.
Yeah,
but I think the train, actually, the Simon and Garfunkel bit was probably because of the train imagery, and they did things like the Boxer and sitting on a railway station. What's that one called? Something about going home.
For a destination.
Yeah, but yeah. What was the other one? Bruce Springsteen.
Tell us the Bruce Springsteen one. Go on, tell us that one.
I like that Springsteen says Springsteen songwriting often delves into the human existence using vivid everyday imagery to explore deeper themes. Narrative style of Runaway Train, combined with its focus on journey and introspection, aligns well with Springsteen's approach to storytelling through song. His work frequently touches on themes of escape, destiny, and the search for meaning.
Yeah, I must admit, I do like a lot of Bruce Springsteen stuff, but I've never really felt that it's had much of an influence on my writing, whereas I definitely have in the past been influenced by Bob Dylan and obviously Leonard Cohen, and to a certain extent Paul Simon as well. I think he's one of my favorite songwriters. So possibly yes.
And the last one that I want to talk about is Spider.
Oh right, yes.
And is there a story behind Spider, or absence of doubt, or?
So yeah, that one was one that was let's say assisted by AI, the lyrics. So sometimes what I will do is I've got a couple of sites that I use where you can put kind of keywords in and it will produce something that looks like a song. Most of the time it's utter crap, but it does sometimes spit out phrases that you think, oh, I could do something with that. And one of the phrases that was this particular time it spat out was just a little child with a spider in her hand or something like that. And I thought, oh, I could do something with that. That's lots of interesting imagery floating around that. So it was really, I think sometimes when I write stuff, obviously I want to tell a story or I want to put a point across. Other times, and this is something that I got from Richard actually, before we started collaborating, when I was just working on my own, I would mainly try and write songs that were about a particular thing, and sometimes quite literal. But listening to Richard's stuff and working with Richard, I like the way that he uses more abstract imagery and stuff like that, and I try and incorporate that into my work now. And this is a typical example of that. is where you put phrases in because you like the sound of them, but also because they paint pictures in your mind, but
it's like a tableau, isn't it?
Somebody else listening to it would see a different picture so it's not about a particular thing, it's just an exercise in creating mental images, if you like. Sounds a bit pretentious, doesn't it? But there we go.
No, but that it doesn't, but it's even if it did, that's cancelled out by the fact that you almost called me Ricky when you were.
Did I?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, you stopped yourself and then corrected to Richard, but it's a nice moment. I enjoyed it.
Well, I can call you Ricky from now on if you like.
No, you really can't. No.
So I thought it was interesting, the artist that it chose, that ChatGPT chose Spider to be similar to, and they were Florence and the Machine, PJ Harvey, and Tori Amos.
Now that's very interesting because I've heard very little of Florence and the Machine, and I've not been particularly impressed by what I have heard. I don't want to slag them off, but it's not really my stuff. And the same with PJ Harvey, actually. I feel that, but obviously because she was very involved with Nick Cave, and her songwriting comes from a very similar place to Nick Cave's, I think. I feel that I ought to like her, but I've never really heard anything of hers that I thought, wow, yeah, that's fantastic. Tori Amos, I've heard a few of her things, and again, she's okay, but I wouldn't say that I was a fan of any of those, really, which is interesting.
Yeah, and all three descriptions are kind of similar, and they talk about delving into intense and sometimes dark themes, focusing on powerful imagery and storytelling. And so each of them sort of came through, and it's interesting that your opinion does echo mine a little bit. There's nothing that's ever captured me, and again, it's described all three of them in a very similar way, and so perhaps there's that aspect of it. But I almost expected it to spit out The Cure or something like that, to go that lazy route and see Spider and see all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it's interesting that it chose three very similar artists that I couldn't really comment on because I haven't really listened much to. So
yeah, exactly.
Can I just add a little bit of something for flavor about that track Spider? So as Mark's promotional video for the album was based on that track, and it has a lot of
spiders.
I presume they're not real spiders, they're CGI'd spiders. A couple of people at work who know that I make music were saying, so when's the album out? And I said, well, it's out November the 5th, but here's a link to promotional video that Mark's just made, and it really freaked them out. And I'm pretty sure we lost upwards of £10 there. They were quite keen on buying the album until they went, sorry, is this representative of the album? This is horrible. And they were just talking about the images. They weren't talking about the music. And then one of them said a bit later, yeah, I can't really get that music out of my brain either. That's I'm a bit scared. But anyway, we don't want those people listening to our album.
They don't like Tori Amos either, so let's go.
No, yeah, okay. Quite like Tori. Maybe that's because I'm a conservative at heart.
So I've come full loop then on my hidden agenda, and come around to covers of and influences. So that's my end of this. I see we're coming up to an hour as well, so maybe that's a good time. I think our last one stretched a bit too far, maybe.
Yeah, we went over the hour, and we went for 2 hours, and I think we were being belligerent.
Yeah. So before we hit that point and break up the band forever, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Mr. Todd.
Well, no, I love the fact that you put way more work into this than either Mark or I did. I didn't. I mean, I arranged it, you know, like I made the folder for this new project, but really, I haven't done a lot else. You really no. I'm all joking and mirth aside. I'm really deeply appreciative that you know, but you didn't say whether you liked it or not.
Oh, I accepted the invitation to be here, so I wouldn't be here to slag you guys off. So yeah, no, it is another fantastic piece of music. One that people in my office have heard a few times already. So
Nice.
so always willing to share the music there, and so yeah, it's great, and I look forward to next November 5th next year and seeing what comes out along the way as well. So
just a little bit. I've just had this thought pop into my head. Pretty much know what Mark thinks of this already, but I'll ask you: would you pay to go and see Random Car Automata live?
Oh yeah, for sure, without a doubt. Oh yeah.
Come on, Mark, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Are you doing a Southeast Asia tour?
Do we look like that? Actually, we do look like those kind of men, don't we?
Yeah.
All I wanted to say was thank you. Thank you very much, Leonard.
Yes.
No, without a doubt. So yeah, no, great piece of work. It's always good to hear what comes out of your brains, and to especially when you find artists that have the influences that have also influenced my music, the music that I've liked over the years, and producing something new, a new version of that. We can't get new Leonard Cohen, and we can't get sometimes a new music, and to have you guys distill that into versions of music that I want to hear is fantastic. So thank you for that, and for putting your original spin on it, as always.
Just I want to add one more thing. This is not really self-promotion, but it is. I was talking with Jeremy Lee. Jeremy Lee was the drummer in Handsome Black band I had in Beijing, and I occasionally will send him bits, and I sent him a couple of tracks in their raw state, and he said, and I think this is true of this album. He said, I think your music's getting more interesting, and I think Mark's music is getting more interesting, and it's just nice to be. A lot of people I know from the 70s and 80s and bands don't do anything anymore, and I'm not bad mouthing them. Kind of am, really, but I'm not. But I think for people who write stuff, it's really so important to every now and again just get a little bit of feedback, like you're giving us now, and like Jeremy gave, because it's heaven knows it's not for the money or the listenership, but I think the highest listens to one of the tracks from the album is like 8 on my YouTube channel so far. But it's just nice to hear that I like it, and these are the reasons why. So thank you ever so much. Well, the next thing is going to be the Viagra album, whatever it's called.
Is it going to be an album?
Well, what is it? Six tracks so far? Is it 5 tracks?
He sent us 5. I mean, that would make a nice.
How long your soundscapes are.
That would make a nice EP, but if it goes well, we might do others, and so I guess we could put together an album, couldn't we?
And it depends if he wants to adopt a Johnny Cooper Clarke posture.
Yeah, his poems aren't really in the same sort of vein as Johnny Cooper Clarke.
And then we'll probably bring out another EP in April or May. And
there's a new Mark Automaton album ready for release on the 4th of January, which
what's
is
that called?
It's called A Child of 5 Could Do That. And yeah, so that's due for release on my birthday, 4th of January, which is also the day that I'm going to retire. So I'll spend even longer working on music, and even more time working on music. So I'll be even more prolific Well, hopefully that's the plan anyway.
I think we should induct Lennox into the Randuke Automata Hall of Interviewing Fame, and you should come back every time we release something. Okay.
I'll be here. My hair will be something else.
It won't be hair.
Yeah, who knows by then.
All right. Okay. Lovely to see you, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you for a great release. See ya.
Ta-ta.